Welcome to this week's Learning Webinar. My name is Chantal, and I'm going to be your host today as we discuss printing. We're going to talk about printing in the model view and also looking at the worksheet view and the differences between printing in both ways. We'll also be talking about printing alternatives, so printing to a PDF and also just printing a nice screenshot on your screen as well. Following the presentation, I will open up the chat panel, so if you do have any questions about printing, please feel free at any time during the presentation to type your questions in using that GoToMeeting console that's down the right-hand side of your screen. I'll be able to see those questions and I'll answer them after the formal presentation. Following the entire presentation, I'm going to email you out a booklet that will describe some of the terms and definitions that we use in today's class so you can look through them and understand the point-to-point procedures to use for printing. So let's get started. As you can see on my screen, I have a floor plan completed. I've completed the model, and I'm ready to start printing. While I'm here in model space, I can go up and hit File and Print. When I hit Print, the print dialog box will appear. When you're printing here in the model space, what it's creating for your print is actual little pixels of color on your screen. So think of it as going along with a little pen and going point, 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 point to create the actual picture on the screen. So as it gets close to this vanity in this area right over here, it's going to have a lot of different orange dots to create that area and blue dots for the sync. And then there'll be gray dots and different colored dots to create that image on the screen. That's what we call raster printing. Raster printing is made up of creating those little pixels of color on your screen, and by your printer creating those little pixels by putting little dots of ink to represent them. So you raster print by printing out those little pixels of color. What it does when it's raster printing as well is the entire area that you print is created up of those little dots. So even the area around your model, the little white space around it, will be created by little pixels of white that it's going to create with little dots. So if you've ever printed something out of model space and wonder why it looks a little washed or it looks a little grainy when you print it, that graininess are those little dots that it's printing out because it's printing it in a raster. Now the advantage of printing it here in model space, if I just click cancel out here now, is if you're in a 3D view. So if I go to my 3D perspective view, I'm just going to change my view type to perspective. And while I'm in this type of view, it has to create that look of that 3D model by creating little pixels of color. So if I'm in model view and I want File and Print, this is exactly where I'd want to print it out of because it gives me the pixels of color. When I'm in this print dialog box, I tell it the name of the printer that I want to be printing to. So you either have a printer hooked up to your computer locally by just printing in using one of your ports on your computer to hook directly into the printer, or perhaps you're printing one over your network, so you just click into one of those printers that you are connected to. If you're not connected to a printer, but you want to print it out and share it to someone, you can always print it to a PDF file. And you can see here that I'm using the PDF writer called Desk PDF. So I've got Desk PDF as my PDF writer. To print to a PDF file, you need to have a PDF writer. So this PDF writer takes the print that you're about to print out, like you would to any printer that you're hooked up to, and it creates it as a digital file that you can pass on to other people as a PDF file. Now there's other PDF writers. Of course, there's Adobe, who is the original maker of the PDF file. You can go up to adobe.com and download their PDF writer if you haven't. There's also another one called 995 PDF. They create another PDF writer, and there's Desk PDF. If you do a Google search on PDF writers, you'll find many, many different PDF companies that create PDF writers. Desk PDF is the one that I use. I find it very good for creating a PDF, and it is a very relatively inexpensive option for creating a PDF file. So you can test drive all of them. All of them will have free downloads. If you have never installed a PDF writer before, it goes in just like you were installing your Envisioneer software. It installs the program, but you don't really see a program until you go to print. And then all of a sudden you'll see Desk PDF or Adobe PDF or 995 PDF as one of your printers. So instead of printing it to an actual printer, it's going to print it to a digital file that you can share. So I'm choosing my PDF, Desk PDF here to use. And then from there I tell it what I want to print out. Well, I want to print out a letter size picture of my 3D view of my model. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner here while I'm moving my mouse around, I preview what it's going to print. So even though it's letter size, I want to shift the orientation. I don't want the paper to be portrait. I want to orientate it so it's a landscape, so it fills in my picture of my model a lot better. So there you can see the little preview. Then it wants to know, well, what do I want to print? And you've got options here of what's on your display currently or the full extent of your model. Now, buyer beware with the all extents view. I never personally use it because you could have something sitting way off in space beside your model, and it will try to fill both your model and whatever object you have way off in space onto that print. So if you use display, then it's going to look at what's currently viewing on your screen, what current display you currently have, and it's going to print that out for you. And then you can tell it if you want to center that on the paper or shift it over to the lower left. You may want to shift it over to the lower left if you want to conserve paper and perhaps reuse this blank space that it's not going to use up for you. Once you have that done, all you have to do is hit the print button. And when you hit the print button, it starts to create that PDF file. So it'll go through and print it, and it'll want to know where you want to print that to. So I'm just saving a copy to my desktop, and I'll call it Print Sample from Model. And I hit Save. And then it goes through and it creates that PDF file for me. It'll be the same process regardless of what PDF writer that you use, if it's Desk PDF like I'm using or Adobe PDF. And then it'll open up in Adobe Acrobat Reader so you can see that PDF file before you send it out to a client. So creating a PDF file can be done in model space from a 3D view. And again, to get the look of the blue sky, the shingled roof, the brick texture on the walls, and the green grass, it's doing that by little dots of color, nice and close together, so it looks realistic to print it out. And your printer emulates that by putting little dots of color in as well, or black and white. If your printer is a black and white, it'll take tones of these colors to print out. And it creates the PDF. And again, that's called a raster. When it creates little dots of color, you're creating a raster image. That's through model space printing. When I click into my worksheet, so now at the very bottom of the screen, down at the bottom where I'm moving my mouse around in the lower left-hand corner, I'm now going to click on One Floor Plan. And that's what takes me out to the worksheets. In the worksheet environment, you're working in a different type of environment. It's no longer creating the image through dots of color. This area of our software in the worksheets recognizes that lines are lines and text is text. And it'll print it out like that. And this is what we call vector printing. And it's a vector type of drawing, where it knows it doesn't have to create it up of the little pixels. It knows that a line is a line and text is text. This is where you get nice, sharp, crisp printing. This will be used for printing out floor plans, elevations, sections, details. But anytime, even if you insert a 3D view of an onto your working drawing sheets, because it's a 3D view showing textures, brick, sky, green grass, anytime it has to create a texture, it has to do it in a raster, dots of color, to create those colors and textures. But when it's a floor plan like this, or an elevation, it knows that a line is a line, and text is text, and it will create it as such in a nice, crisp way of appearance. The process for printing here in worksheet space is the exact same as it would be if I was in model space. But you'll notice that the print dialog box has a couple more options to it. So again, I'm going to go up to File, and once I'm under File, I'm going to choose Print. When I'm in this print dialog box, again, you can see it looks the same, but there will be a couple more options that I'll cover as well. So this time, again, I'm going to tell it that I want to print it out to a PDF. So I choose Desk PDF. Again, exact same process. It's not going to change if I had chosen one of my local printers either. Now that I'm telling it I want to do a PDF, this time I'm going to increase my paper size. Instead of having it print out to an 8.5 by 11, my letter size, I'm going to scroll down till I see my Arch D piece of paper. And again, I want this piece of paper to be orientated landscape. So you can see my title block fitting onto that sheet. Again, here's a further option that you have when you're in Worksheet. When we were in our model space, our print area included all or display. But now that we're on Worksheets, it also includes the option for window. When I'm on a worksheet environment and I'm going to print, I always use the window option. I never use all and I never use display in this option. Printing out a worksheet, I always use window. What the window option allows me to do, as soon as I choose window, you'll notice that this window button becomes active. I'm going to pick on it. It takes me back out to my drawing sheet where I can window around by left-clicking here and then left-clicking again to create a little box. Whatever inside that box will be printed. Whatever left outside that box will be disregarded. So it knows exactly what I want to include in my print. Then again, we have the same option for page setup, centered on the page size that I've selected, that Arch D 24 by 36 inch piece of paper, or shuffle it down to the lower left. Here's another option that's additional to the options that you had from Model Space. I can print all the colors as black. So even though we're selecting items and they're showing color, my bathtub is red, my doors are red, my walls are blue, when I go to print, I could tell it that I want those colors to all print out as black. I don't want to print it out as a color option. And you can see when I choose print all colors as black, my little preview goes to a black and white option as well. Here's another option that's added here in Worksheet. Fit to page or print to scale. If I choose print to scale, it recognizes the scale that I've drawn this entire worksheet at. I've chosen a 1/4 inch equals a foot. The view scale is a 1/4 inch equals a foot. It's going to print to that. And you can see I've got 3 foot by 2 foot area here, my 24 by 36, and it fits it on that sheet. Now, if I had told it that my print scale that I want to print to is actually 1/2 inch equals a foot, watch my preview. My preview all of a sudden gets these lines drawn through it. I get my model, my drawing that I'm trying to print out, quartered. There's 4 different sections to it. What it's trying to tell me is I've chosen a 24 by 36 inch piece of paper. I've chosen a scale of 1/2 inch equals a foot. So to be able to print that out, it would need to print out 4 separate pieces of paper, and then you could glue them or tape them together afterwards to create that model 1/2 inch equals a foot and print it out. It can't fit it on 1 piece of Arch D paper. It needs to fit it on 4 pieces of paper at that scale. So whenever you see your print preview divided into little lines like this, or many, many lines, you have either too small of a piece of paper or too grand of a scale for the two to go together. So to be able to print out on an Arch D piece of paper at 24 by 36 and to fit it on, I have to reduce my scale. So I'll bring it back to a 1/4 inch equals a foot. And then you can see how it nicely fits it on. My preview hasn't been quartered to fit it. So again, anytime you're looking at your preview and you see lines running through it, just like this, then you know that that scale and that piece of paper can't work together to fit it on the page. Your building is too large, drawn at that scale, to fit it on that small piece of paper. So increase the paper size, maybe go to an Arch E piece of paper, or decrease the size. And maybe if it was a 1/4 inch, maybe you have to go down to an 1/8 inch scale to be able to fit them together. Mine fits nicely. The model was drawn so that it would fit on a quarter, at a quarter inch equals a foot, a 24 by 36 inch piece of paper. So we get our little preview. We've got our little scale. Then you can also say print the line weights. Each one of the items that you draw, a wall, a window, a door, gets told that it's a certain color. So if you look back over here at my model, my doors were told that they were red. They were also given a line weight, whether you want a really heavy pen weight or a light pen weight. They all have that distinction. We've given those pen weights in the default catalog, and you can alter those, and I'll show you where after we're exited out of this dialog box. So I tell it to print the line weights. It's looking at all the various lines that make up this drawing and the information behind those lines. Was it originally a red line with a light line weight or a dashed line type? Or was it a heavy line weight, and is it orange? It looks at all of those before it prints out. We've told it we don't want it to look at the colors. We're printing everything out as black, but we've also told it that we want to print out the line weights. So it knows the heavier versus the narrow pens. So it gives it a nice, very professional, crisp look to your working drawings. So again, I've told it I'm printing to a PDF on an arched D piece of paper, a nice 24 by 36. So even if you don't have a 24 by 36 inch plotter, you can always print a PDF to that and then send it off, email it off to a print house so they can print it for you, or email it to your clients so they can review it at that larger scale as well. We've told it to print around the window area. So we windowed around a section of our model in worksheet space that we wanted to print out, our entire title block. Told it to print everything as black, print it to scale, and print the line weights. And again, from there, it's just hitting the print button, and it takes me out to say, what would you like to print? And I'm going to say a print sample from worksheet. And hit save. It's creating that PDF right now and saving a copy of it onto my hard drive, giving it the name print sample from worksheet. And my Adobe reader will automatically pop up when it's done and show me exactly what I printed out. And this is exactly what I could send to a print house if I didn't have a large plotter available to print out this 24 by 36. Or this is what I could also attach to an email to send to a client to get them to review the floor plan to make sure that it's the design that they were looking for. Okay, so that's printing to a PDF from both model space and here in our worksheet space where we're working in that vector environment. I'm going to go back up to File, and under the File pull-down menu, underneath the print option here in Worksheet, you'll also see the opportunity for batch printing. And click on batch printing. What batch printing will allow you to do is to print out all of your sheets at once. So you can see on the left-hand side all of the various sheets that I have available. So I've got my model, my one floor plan that we already looked at. There's another sheet called 2 elevations, sheet 3 and sheet 4. So if you have multiple sheets at the bottom, maybe you have a page of elevations, a page of details, a site plan view, batch printing allows you to print them all at the same time. So all I have to do is review the print properties on each of the sheets in this one dialog box, and it will print it out. So that saves me from going to one sheet, printing the window, then opening up the next sheet and the next sheet, all in one dialog box. I can get that ready to print them all out at once. So when I hit print, it would print all of those checked options over here. So I could uncheck model view and say, just print me out the 4 worksheet views. Those would all print out to whatever specifications I'd set them to, either my PDF file or the local printer. So to save yourself some time, when you're going to print out many sheets at the same time as part of one project, go to File, Batch Printing. It will show you all of your drawing sheets. You can check which ones you want to currently print out, and then you can choose the print process, and it will print all of those for you. Okay, I'm just going to hit close there. So batch printing and PDF printing. I'm going to go to my 2 elevations page here. And on the second elevation page here, you can see that we've inserted on this one sheet, a zoomed in view of our model. So on this sheet, instead of having the entire floor plan, we've inserted a view at an increased scale. The thing to remember about inserting a view, I'm just going to open up another drawing sheet to show you how we did that and what it affects. So see, we have this sheet right here as well. That's the same working drawing title block as my 2 elevations and my 1 floor plan title block. They're all the same. But I can insert any type of view onto this sheet. So if I come up to my Define Smart View button, so I come up and select the button and hit Define a Smart View, which looks back to my model and asks me what type of view I'd like to insert. I could zoom in through the bottom here on just one portion of my model, so I'll pick that same type of view looking at the kitchen. And I could tell it I want to insert this view at a 1/2 inch equals a foot. When I hit Insert, a copy of just that one part appears. So it's just that one view. See how it doesn't quite fit on my sheet at that scale? So I could select it, and over on the right-hand side, you'll see Object Properties. Because I've selected it, it now tells me the properties of what I've selected, that view that I just inserted. Well, I need to redefine the settings because that scale, that large scale, 1/2 inch equals a foot, doesn't allow it to fit onto my title block sheet. So under Settings here, under Smart View Settings, you can see I can redefine those settings. So when I hit Redefine, it brings me back into this dialog box where I can tell it, instead of a 1/2 inch, let's try 3/8 equals a foot, and I'll hit Update. And it updates that scale for me. So I know that this view on my sheet is 3/8 of an inch. If I come up here to File and Print, I'm telling it that I want to print again to my PDF writer, that I again want it to be my 24 by 36 Arch D piece of paper, and again I want it to be landscape. I want it to print to a window, which I will choose by picking points around the selected title block. And then I tell it that I want to print it to scale. Look at the scale. The scale is telling me that it's a 1/4 inch equals a foot. When I inserted that one view onto this title block, I brought it in at 3/8 of an inch. But the title block in this entire worksheet area is a 1/4 inch equals a foot. So it will recognize any type of scale I bring in and scale it down appropriately. So when this one went from a 1/2 inch to 3/8, it got smaller, but my title block didn't. My title block remained at that original size. So that title block is holding that scale of a 1/4 inch equals a foot. So when you go to print, you're printing out that scale. You're not printing it to the individual view scale because I can define a new Smart View to insert on this same sheet. So I could go to a elevational view and just around one window, tell it that this one window that I want to insert, perhaps I'll scoot this off to one side here, to be just this window right here, and I want to insert it at a 1/2 inch, or I want to take another view and I want to insert it at a 1/4 inch, just perhaps the deck and the doors here, keep it at a 1/4 inch. They can all have their own unique scale. It's this working drawing title block that's housing that 1/4 inch. Even though these are all different scales, it's the title block at that 1/4 inch that's going to hold that scale for you, so everything prints out nicely. When you go to print, same process, keep it at a 1/4 inch because that's the title block definition. These views are sitting on it at their corrected scale. So today we've talked about printing in 2 different environments. When we're here in our worksheet view, remember that here you're printing in what we call a vector environment. That means that on our sheets, it recognizes that a line is a line and that text is text. So print it out very crisp. When you have to create a texture, like our model view textures, in this 3D view where it has to show brick is brick and grass is grass and blue sky. When it's creating it in this environment, in our worksheet, it's creating it as a raster. And again, remember that a raster creates a print or a view on your screen by creating little dots of color, very close together. So we have a bunch of blue dots, a bunch of white dots, and various shades of brown dots here to create our shingle look. When it's creating that type of view, the more you zoom in, the worse it's going to look, and it might look grainy. It's great for a view just like this, but if I try to zoom in on a raster type of view, you can see the individual pixels. And it's not as good of a looking as it was when it was zoomed out. A vector knows that a line is a line and that text is text. And that's how it can print out very crisp. The closer you zoom in, it's still going to look just as good. But it can't show textures. It can't show colors the same way that a raster can. So both of them have their preferred method for printing. If it's a 3D view showing texture, you have to use a raster so it can show those colors. If it's a floor plan, an elevation, a section, a detail, then it must be a vector so it can keep it nice and crisp. Printing here in your model space, coming up to File and Print, you can print it out, and it will always, if I tell it to print my display and print it to a letter view, you'll notice that you can't affect your print scaling because I'm looking at a 3D view. And it's going to create it as a raster. Whereas when I'm in my worksheet views, it recognizes that I'm in the different type of environment, and when I go to print, I can change the scale. I can tell it to print all the colors as black so I get that grayscale effect and print the line weights of each individual line. Where do you get the line weight of each individual item? Well, let's go back to model space when you began to draw. You selected the wall to draw. I'm going to right-click on a wall and look at its properties. Under the properties of a wall, you'll see that it has the Appearance tab. This gives you the appearance not only in 3D that this looks like a brick texture, but you'll see these components off to the left, 2D core, 2D exterior surface. This is looking at when I go to draw this line in 2D to show my exterior surface, that brick edge, what color is the line? What line type is it using? And what's the line weight? When I draw the core of the wall, so the stud portion of that wall, those lines, again, what color, line type, and line weight does it have? Each portion of this wall can have different line weights associated, different colors, so it can print out accordingly. So we're telling it that when we're doing the exterior surface, that's going to be a medium line weight, whereas some of your text and your dimension lines will be a very light line weight. So it looks very professional when you go to print it. So take a look at the properties of all the various objects that you've inserted into a model. Every object will have an Appearance tab, and it will list all of the components that make up that object on the left. You're looking for the 2D options so you know exactly the color, the line type, and the line weight that it's using when it goes to print those out. What I'd like to do for the duration of the webinar today is take the last portion of it to answer your individual questions that you might have about printing. Perhaps you've tried to print to a PDF before and had some issues, or you want to go over the whole raster versus vector definitions again so you understand exactly how they print. In the GoToMeeting console, on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a questions portion to it where you can chat in a question to me and I'll be able to read them. Never, ever hesitate to ask a question during our webinars. They're a great way to learn. If you've got that question, most likely someone else in our class has that same question today as well. So by posting it up there, everyone benefits. I'm the only one that can read the questions, so don't be shy about posting them. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions during our webinar time. Before we get to the questions, I do want to remind you as well, that following the presentation, I will be emailing you out a booklet that goes over the definition of raster versus vector printing, how to print out a sheet from worksheet space, and how to print it out of model space. So everything that we've covered in today's class that I talked about, you'll be able to read about as well. I'm just going to go to our question board now, and nobody has a question so far. We're a shy bunch today, so I'll leave the chat panel open for one further minute, just in case someone is typing out a question now or trying to think of a question. I'll give us some time to formulate those questions. So 1 minute for questions. And then I do want to draw your attention to the Cadsoft Facebook page, because on our Facebook page, you will find that we have a contest running right now. We are holding a contest each month to find the best renderings from one of our users worldwide. So you post up your favorite rendering on the topic of each month, and we vote on it. And if you win, then you win a 2-hour session with one of our Cadsoft experts. So I'm just taking you up there right now, and hold on while I erase all those drawings. So here on our Facebook page, so if you went to www.facebook.com and went /Cadsoft Corporation, like you can see at the top here, you'll find information about our Facebook Design Challenge. And it will tell you that at the end of each month, you'll be able to win a 2-hour online custom consultation with one of our experts here at Cadsoft. This month, we are, for the month of September, so from the first Monday of the month to the last Monday of the month, we accept your postings for your renderings. This month for September, the subject is kitchens. And you can see on our Facebook page, we already have our very first contest entry here. And I'll have to get that shared so everybody can see it. But one of our clients has posted their picture up there, and I'll make sure that it's posted on our form, so you can either like it. So for every like that's got on an individual rendering, they get 1 point. If one of the Cadsoft judges likes it, then they get 10 points. And if it's, or someone from a Cadsoft end user likes it, then they'll get 10 points. And if one of our judges like it, it's worth 25 points. So your best kitchen rendering could win you a 2-hour online custom consultation with one of our staff members. And there still isn't any questions up there. So we'll wrap up the webinar today on printing. I hope you enjoyed today's class. And again, following today's class, you will be sent a PDF of all of the topics that we covered in today's class. And I look forward to seeing you in a class in the upcoming weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.